Just talking musicals, musicals with you.
Hello, I'm Lesley Ann Knight, and welcome to the Just Talking Musicals meetup, where I get to have a quick catch up with some of today's outstanding theatre professionals from the West End and Broadway. On the other side of the Zoom window today is an American actor who has graced the stages of both Broadway and the West End, and won no less than 3 coveted Laurence Olivier Awards while he was at it. Best Actor in a Musical came in 2004 for playing the warm-up man and Satan in the National Theatre's much-lauded Jerry Springer the Opera, and the next 2 were bestowed upon him for Best Supporting Actor in a Musical in the London premiere of Lin-Manuel Miranda's In the Heights in 2015, playing Kevin Rosario, and yet another for his role playing Lance in And Juliet in 2020. But of course, 3 Olivier Awards don't just land in your lap without a lot of hard graft, and the CV of today's guest pays tribute to that, with some pretty impressive shows from both sides of the Atlantic, including playing Caiaphas in the 20th anniversary national tour of Jesus Christ Superstar with Ted Neeley, Carl Anderson and Irene Cara, to singing in the original company of Smokey Joe's Cafe on Broadway on and off for 5 years, and touring the United States with none other than Diane Carroll in Lerner and Lowe's Almost Like Being in Love. On this side of the Atlantic, he's played Roger Debris in The Producers, Frankenfurter in The Rocky Horror Show with Richard O'Brien, which was screened to 1,000 cinemas across the UK and broadcast across TV in America. There is most definitely more to tell you about today's guest, but I think I shall let him tell us the rest. So it gives me a great pleasure to welcome David Bedella to today's meetup. Hello, David.
Hi, how are you?
Very good, thank you. It's so
Okay.
lovely to meet up with you today.
I have to tell you, it's nerve-wracking to hear the list read before you. You know, I wasn't. I knew you'd probably do something like that, but it just is. It feels. I feel cringy, like I don't know where to look and I don't know how to be.
I think
So anyway, it's lovely.
excited and proud, really, surely.
Yeah. You know, I did a little bit of prep work before this because I had watched a couple of your interviews in the past. One with Corey English, who you know I did producers with, and he's just one of the loves of my life. I think he's so incredible.
Yeah.
And I watched a bit of Valentine, and so today I thought before we start, I should watch another one and just sort of get the feel of it. Well, I made the drastic mistake of watching your interview with Hadley Fraser, who you know, now after watching that interview I absolutely idolize, and but it absolutely scared the heck out of me because I thought he is so well spoken, so intelligent, so prolific and accomplished, and has the voice of God, and just I mean there's just no end to the things. And then towards the end of the interview I kind of relaxed a little bit because I thought, wow, we have so much in common,
Yeah.
so much down to our favorite shows and favorite roles, and the people that we admire. It was like listening to myself speak. And so I guess I've come full circle in thinking I'm okay to be here.
Oh, most definitely. And it's funny you should mention Hadley, because I was going to bring him up right now, because and for anybody that hasn't seen the Hadley Fraser interview, when we talk about favourite shows, he says Jesus Christ
Yes,
Superstar with Ted Neeley and Carl Anderson, and how he would love to have seen it. And
I
he
mean.
likewise, he'll probably be watching this and thinking he was in it. Um, and I find that so exciting, because what an amazing, I was going to start off by asking you before we start our real proper meetup questions about how
Right.
exciting it must have been to have been a part of that production. Oh, how lovely. Cheers. I've got some
Pouring
water.
myself a glass of wine. Have
Thank
you? Ah, okay. To you, and thank you for
you.
conducting this lovely interview.
Oh, thank you for coming today. Thank you.
So your question was about that production?
Totally. That it's an iconic. The people in it were part of an
Yeah.
iconic production, weren't they?
Yeah, it was a 20th anniversary reassemblage of so many of the important people that brought it together, and I had to pinch myself at the time, and still do, especially when I hear in Hadley's interview, him speaking about what would it have been like to have heard Carl Anderson sing that role live, and I actually started to weep. I got very teary because I sat there watching him thinking, I stood across from that man night after night. I actually, it's the longest tour I've ever done. I was with that show for 3 years on the road.
Wow.
Um, and Teddy and Carl and we made it from beginning to the end, and it was astounding. I don't think there will ever be a singer like him again, Carl Anderson.
Yeah.
And Ted, the graciousness and the love that just poured from him. He channeled our savior, I believe, when he was doing that show. But really, it was a wonderful experience, and I share Hadley's feelings. I don't think anyone will do it justice the way that those two did. The company actually consisted of the two of them, Ted and Carl. Irene Cara, as you mentioned, was our Mary Magdalene. We had Dennis DeYoung, who's the lead singer from Styx, and
Yes.
lots of people have all of their big hits. And myself as the Caiaphas, we were the five principals. So it was pretty cool. I enjoyed it.
It must be exhausting to be on tour for 3 years. You've got to have some real stamina, haven't you?
Well, you got to be young, I think, which I don't know how they did it, because they were both of them turned 50 while we were on the road. And I think I had just turned 30.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's touring, I think, is a younger person's game. I don't know. It's just too difficult once you get up in years. Difficult enough to get to the West End, let alone on tour. So
Yes. But yeah, so that's, it's just wonderful looking back and thinking you have seen, I mean, we will get to our questions in a second, but it seems to me that you have this incredible knack of landing some incredible roles. Knack, talent. But they are some fantastic, like Jerry Springer, and In the Heights. I mean, I shouldn't call it an incredible knack. It's just that it's talent, isn't it, that goes with that, of course, as well.
Well, do you know what? I've been one who has said this for so many years. Of course, you have to have the talent. Of course, you have to have the goods. That having had the homework all in place, so that you are able to come through when they need you. But so much of it in this industry is timing and luck. So much of it. I spent years in New York. I was in New York for 11 years, and I watched so many of my friends who I knew sang far better than I and danced far better than I and had the acting chops. I watched opportunities go by them, and I thought, how is this happening? Because they're so good. And I do believe it comes down to things like luck and fate and timing, and and then you just got to have the goods when you get in the room and make sure you can deliver. But yeah, it's not just talent, certainly.
But it all goes into the pot, doesn't it? But getting on to our questions, how is your 2020 diary looking when we're currently in February 2021, and so this time last year in 2020, what was your 2020 diary looking like before we went into our lockdown?
Well, it was looking pretty bright. I had been doing and Juliet. I had just been nominated for the third Olivier. Our company was nominated for nine Oliviers. I think leading the race, so that we were all feeling just really good about it. I was in in conversations, I should say, with the company that was bringing over Jake Gyllenhaal to do Sunday in the Park.
Yes.
We were looking at doing that in the near future. And there were some film and television things that were in conversation as well. So everything was just buzzing, and I was feeling really great. And then it happened, and it all came to a screeching halt. And it was very difficult. Not so much for me, in the sense that although my work stopped, I had an opportunity to be at home for the first time in a long time. Lots of my previous 3 years were spent going back and forth between London and LA, London and Chicago, London and New York, for professional reasons and for family reasons. And so it was the first time in a long time that I was actually, was forced to just stop everything, stay home, do nothing. And so for me, it was kind of great in a way, but then the reality of what was happening sank in, and that was devastating. Watching our industry shut down, watching friends struggle, the emotional roller coaster that it put me on. I went through some serious mental challenges, real depression. I guess partially because I had to face my parents being gone. sorry. Every time I say that phrase, I have to stop for a second because it gets hard to talk about. But
Yeah.
I had been, I had lost my father and mother in the last couple of years. And I think you just sort of put a Band-Aid on it, and you get right back to work and you get right back to all the things that you need to do. And so being at home with nothing to do leaves you alone with your thoughts. And I think I got down to the grieving part of losing my parents for the first time. And ooh, that was like, that was a blindside. That took a lot of time for me to come out of that.
I can say from my own experience, dealing with grief often takes you, it does blindside you, doesn't it? It's something, it comes from where you just somewhere, at some point when you're just not expecting it and just pushes you over.
Yeah.
And
I guess the silly thing about it is that we all tell ourselves probably our whole lives, our parents are going to die, our parents are going to get old and they're going to die. And you think that you're preparing yourself. You think along the way that you're going to be ready because, you know, they've had a good life, and in the end, you're just not ready for what it feels like until it happens. So not to scare all of you out there.
no, but it is part of life, isn't it? And I think you're right. I think the world standing still has brought out an enormous, you know, apart from the obvious things, the fact that we're in lockdown and there's some dreadful things happening with physical health as a result because of it. But for those people who are just trying to live their lives and just get on, all sorts of things have come out of the woodwork. And even, I think even in the last week with the news that we're all, it's okay, there's news that we're going to be coming out of the woodwork in June, there's now that feeling of, oh great, I can go out. I'm not sure if I want to go out. It's confusing, and I think it's good to sort of open up about it and just to say, well, I found it, everybody finds it difficult at different times, don't they?
Yeah. And I think dealing with the reality of the world, meaning watching the news day after day and seeing the numbers that they were in the thousands, literally thousands and thousands of people were losing the people that they loved the most.
Yeah.
And going through that same process that I was going through, that same ache that comes in the bottom of your stomach that you just can't, you know, don't know what to do with. Thousands en masse were doing that all at once, and that was hard for me. In fact, my partner at one point banned me from the BBC. He said, "You don't get to watch the news anymore because inevitably I would crash." And he said, "No more news for a while. I'll watch the news. If something you need to know happens, I'll tell you. But otherwise, you're off to do your own projects." So there we go.
I put my hand up to that as well. I've done exactly that. I just leg it from the sitting room when the news came on, because I couldn't deal with it anymore. It's not that you don't care either. It's because you can only, everybody has a limit.
Yeah.
But aside from that, and a very, you know, genuinely serious retrospective look at the year as well, you also, and I think life often throws this at you, throughout all of that, you actually were, it seems to me, you were busy in 2020 and you topped your year off collecting your Olivier Award. I mean, how wonderful is that?
Yeah, there were some very nice highlights.
Yes.
And yeah, we started doing assembling songs with our casts and with other people who wanted to get together and perform. You know, I got to sing a duet with Lea Salonga, for God's sake, someone whom I have heard my whole life. And you know, we started putting these things together to keep people entertained. But first and foremost, each one of these was raising money for one of the actors' funds or one of the Acting for Others. I did a whole series of things with the Joe Allen's company, the restaurant, Joe Allen's. We were raising money to try to save that restaurant and to try to funnel money to Acting for Others so that those who were falling between the cracks would have some money. And so that gave me something to work on, even though it was doing it from a kitchen or from a, you know, dining room. Eventually with Joe Allen's, we got to actually get together, you know, with proper restrictions, get together and do things in the West End again. But, you know, back into lockdown. But yeah, there was some great stuff that kept all of us going and hopefully inspired others and gave them hope, I think.
Oh, your duet with Lea Salonga, the Sweeney Todd. Wow. Just
Yeah,
fantastic. Um,
yeah, it was fun.
it must have been so exciting doing that.
I loved it. Well, I played Sweeney a couple of years back at a very small theater in the burbs, and so that was like Hadley. That was one of my dream roles that I thought I hope I can tackle that one day. I got to, but this was a little reprise, and you never guess that you're going to be singing it with one of the great singers of the world, and there she
Yeah.
is. So I enjoyed that. I would like to take on Sweeney, and I feel at this age and having been through some of the things I've been through. It's now the right time to really go after it again. But who needs the 20th production of Sweeney Todd in London,
I don't
in the
know.
last year?
Well, yes, we'll have to probably wait for that because it is, as I said to Hadley, it's so grisly, but it's thrilling, isn't it? When it's done really well, um, it's just
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. I saw the Tooting Pie Shop production. I saw it in Shaftesbury Avenue and in
Yeah.
Barrow Street in New York, and
Yeah.
that's the best way to do that. I think it's the best arena for Sweeney is to be up close and personal because it really brings the
Mm.
shivers.
Oh yeah.
It's
We
wonderful.
had people close enough to touch, and I tell you, the front row was always spattered with blood when they left. Bless their hearts. I had a friend who came in a white suit. Can you imagine going to see Sweeney Todd in a white suit,
No,
but was covered in blood. It was
ah,
great fun. Yeah,
the,
not something you want to do again.
well, not in a white suit. So this whole pandemic and the whole process that everybody's been through managing and doing exciting projects while we're at it, we're now looking at a situation and we're coming to our spring in 2021 where we've just had an announcement in the UK where we can see the way through that that theatres will hopefully be opening in the third week of June, and that life can start coming back into theatre again. What are your views on how you think everybody might get started again, and have you got projects that you hope might get started this year? And Juliet hopefully
Um,
back, isn't it?
well, theatrically speaking, yes, I was just going to say, theatrically speaking, and Juliet is definitely on its way back. And thank goodness.
Yeah,
Firstly, because it's such a positive and hopeful thing to be watching and to be giving to the audiences. But also, thank God for our producers. Our producers have been just magnificent, getting money to us, not because they had to, but because they knew that we were in need, and taking care of us throughout the way. There's a tremendous sense of loyalty with that company, and I appreciate it so much. Um, but I will definitely be going back to reopen that show. But this lockdown has also encouraged me to look back to film and television, which I hadn't really been doing. A majority of my career has been stage work. And so this has really forced me to look at what's going to keep food on the table. And certainly the film and television industries are bouncing back very quickly, with
yeah.
having a lack of content throughout the lockdown. They're working overtime to make sure there's plenty in the can. And so that is turning out to be very good for me, a great opportunity. I'm hoping that more actors can segue. I know it's difficult to segue between musical theater or theater in general and film and television. There's sort of that great divide. But if you can, I think it's the way forward for a while, because I don't know that we'll be able to be in theaters side by side for a while. I don't. I think we've got to be really, really careful.
I think it's the whole thing about having both vaccinations and knowing that everybody's feeling safe and confident to go into the theatre. There's been such a big thing made of it that you can't sing close to anybody. Everything's got to be we've all got to be separated, haven't we? We've all got to be apart. And but yeah, I suppose it will probably come back socially distanced.
Well, we've just got to be responsible for other people's health, and that's the hardest part. There are people out there who aren't thinking about others. I've even heard some actors that I know personally who've been voicing the fact that they shouldn't feel pressured to have their vaccines, and it's everybody's personal choice. And I'm sorry, but it's just not. It's not everybody's personal choice. We're living in a world where millions of people are dying. You don't get to hold on to your choice that I choose not to be vaccinated. No, you need to take care of everybody else on the planet. That's your job right now and no other. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to be quite so strong, but I get very upset when people think that it's infringing on their personal rights. It's not. It's our responsibility. And I certainly would not go back on stage with any actors who thought they didn't have to be vaccinated because it was their choice. I would just draw the line.
I think when people have been close to people who have suffered from it, then it brings you up close and personal to what can happen. And there are some people who just close their eyes to it and just probably haven't believed it. But that's another matter, isn't it? And I agree with you completely. I think it's a. Somebody pointed out to me earlier on this week, when I was a baby, I had measles when I was a very tiny baby, and it made me partially deaf when as a youngster, and because I was too young to have been inoculated at that point, and it really affected my hearing up until I was probably 8 or 9, and that's because, but everybody is inoculated against that happening to them now. And I think we've lived through a time where everybody gets their jabs and they don't think about it. It's just that you're inoculated and you think nothing of it. But with this pandemic, it's been like it's something different. It's not. It's just, this is the new big thing that everybody has got to be protected from, isn't it? We've got to, and also to look after and care for our National Health Service, and so that we don't, we look after the doctors and nurses and overrun them.
Yeah, we've had these things through the ages, and we just have to keep doing the right thing and keep moving forward. Yeah.
I'm
going to turn my lighting up here a little bit. We're getting dark, isn't it? Okay.
I have to say, for the sake of anybody listening to the podcast, David has got the most fancy backdrop to his setting today in our interview. It's beautiful. It's white with beautiful white fairy lights in the background and daffodils. So it's very spring-like and beautiful. And I'm sitting here in my studio, which is all cluttered and revolting as usual. But it's so impressive. Very professional presentation.
Well, it's a ridiculous setup, and it's a ridiculous setup, straight out of Hollywood. The only reason I did it is because I hang this bloody sheet behind me when I have to do a self-tape for any other project, and I thought, I can't just sit in front of a white sheet. That's so horrible. So I grabbed some Christmas lights out of a bag. I had these flowers sitting up on a shelf, and I thought, oh, just put them together. Of course, it looks ridiculous. Who am I, Barbara Streisand?
Doesn't it? Looks lovely. I love it.
Anyway, here we are.
I feel like I've come to the party not properly dressed. Anyway, on to our questions. Here's to the lighter side of the meetup is question number 4. What is your favourite show, musicals of all time? Now, you've been in so many shows, so I don't know where you take your choice from. So, and it's one that you love since you've
really hard.
Or from shows that you've been in as well.
Okay, so it's either or. Well, see, because we love different musicals for different reasons. I was listening to Corey talk about, he and I have the same sense of humor. We have the same love of getting to the theater and knowing that from the time you get there to the time you leave, you're going to laugh. You're going to laugh nonstop, on stage and off stage. That's what my relationship with Corey was the whole time we were doing The Producers. So top of the list for me has to be The Producers. Along with, I wrote down also A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. That was one of the first shows I did at the Goodman Theater in Chicago. Also, interestingly, directed by Frank Galati, who Hadley was talking about. And Frank was a great friend, and I had dinner at his house. It was a lovely time working. We've all gotten to work with these amazing people.
Yeah.
And here we are on the other side of the Atlantic, all talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
But that was another one of those shows that I knew I was going to be laughing from the second I got there, and I loved it for that reason. Great music, great fun. Audience always walking away happy. On the extreme opposite side, Sunday in the Park with George is oftentimes my go-to when I want to hear a musical. I know that before we reach the closing of Act 1, I'm going to be in tears, and whatever I'm doing, around the house, I just stop and have a good cry for its beauty and its longing for the past and its sadness. It really resonates with me, so it's a favorite.
What is it
So yeah,
about
those two are
Sondheim?
way high up there.
Sorry to interrupt you. What is it about Sondheim, the way he
Just
constructs his music that can really, it grows on you, doesn't it? You hear it and then you hear it again, and then you get something new from it every time, don't you?
yeah, yeah. The introduction to the piece Sunday, the song that ends Act One, with him calling out those words, and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting, and then there's the downbeat for the first Sunday, and your heart just goes, oh God,
Yeah.
and the tears start flowing, and it's so light, so delicate, and so poignant. I just think that's absolute magic. To the same degree, did he do the same thing with Sweeney Todd? It seems to be all of our favorite show that we go back to. It was one of the first albums I got when I was in high school. One of those things that you sit there and think, wow, if I could ever be involved in something like this, it would make my world. So yeah, those are biggies. Those are big important ones, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's funny what you should say about Sunday, because in my own little way, I have learned and sung and performed Sunday as a solo, and what you say about the way that it moves your heart from the very beginning, it just builds and builds, doesn't it? It's just such an amazing song piece, and
Yeah.
whenever I did do it, I was finished at the end of it. I felt I felt satisfied, exhausted, and I felt like my heart was breaking, because it that just says everything, doesn't it? And all it is colours, and it's a long sentence, and
Yeah.
it's just, it wraps you up in all of its melody and its constructions, and at the end of it, you're like, oh, I can do no more, and you're just done in, and I love it. It's just
Yeah,
beautiful, isn't
yeah,
it? And
it's
when
pretty
you
magnificent.
and to have a company around you and be a part of that must be amazing to perform.
I think because many of us have had different phases of our careers, uh, other shows are favorites for completely opposite reasons. I know 42nd Street is still so important to me, and that was my first national tour when I felt for the first time the exhilaration of just dancing so hard that you can't breathe, and you're giving 100%, and there's not a bit more that you can give, and then you turn around and switch costumes and you do it again, and there's 10 of those numbers in a row.
Yeah.
I remember just thinking, there's nothing better on this planet than doing 42nd Street, you know. And then you get to the intimate work of being an actor, and you go to an opposite end. Yes.
I have to ask you, when I look at your CV and your story, you you must be one of those people who from the word go, it was, I want to be in musicals. You must have just loved it right from the start.
I guess, I think I'm sort of a late bloomer. A lot of people were involved when they were kids. I was not. I didn't even know what a musical was till I was in my teens. And then I never went to drama school. I never even graduated high school, to be honest. I didn't go to college. I just sort of discovered musicals, and I went on an audition and I got it. And then, so sort of the first couple of shows were my training. I just sort of watched and soaked it all in. And then before I knew it, it was what I was doing. So,
So it was all there naturally.
yeah, but I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, I fell into it naturally. Let's leave it at that.
I'm also going to pick out of this fact that you didn't go to college. So where did you train? Did you have singing lessons?
No,
Wow.
no. I did. I was involved in choir when I was in high school,
Yeah.
and that was how I discovered what a musical was. And the director of that was Gerald Reinhardt, and he said to me, for my very first time opening my mouth to sing a song for someone, I had never done that before. He said to me, "You're a singer." And I remember laughing and saying, "No, I'm really not." And he said, "No, I'm telling you, you're a singer." He wasn't having a conversation with me. He was informing me.
Yeah.
And he said, "This is what you should be doing." So straight away, I just sort of put faith in what he was saying. Okay, I'm a singer. I can do this. And it was the same way with dancing. Dancing was just a part of my family. My sisters and I used to dance around the kitchen nonstop, doing the dishes, and it was, music and dance was always there. So it felt very natural to get into a rehearsal and learn choreography and just start doing it. I never thought about whether I had training or not. I just did it, and pretty early on, they let you know, you got to get better at this. So I
Yeah.
did.
I mean, it's hard graft, isn't it? But it's interesting that, I mean, I love studying, and I think if you've got the opportunity to study, that's fantastic. And if you've got the opportunity to go to college, that's fantastic. But for people who perhaps can't afford to go and study at any of the, university, or to go to any of the colleges, it's inspiring to know that you can also pursue your dream without having to uh, go to university or go to acting school or anything like the drama school of any kind, and still get there. It's still possible. Do you think it's still possible?
It absolutely, I do. It's absolutely possible. And as you say, there's no denying that education is important, but the most important thing is a willingness and an openness. You can't turn up with a chip on your shoulder because you're hard done by and you didn't have this and you didn't have that. Quite the opposite. You turn up with a better attitude than anyone else, and you say, "I can do this, and how can I help? And what can I, what do you need me to work on?" And I'm there, and not patting myself on the back about it, but I'm saying that was always my attitude. I always wanted to learn more and ask people, "What am I not doing? Tell me what you need." You have to be that sort of positive mental attitude kind of person to get further, I think, and it's
Yeah.
made a big difference.
I think it's exciting because it's the
Yeah,
same as with Corey English. Talking to him, the way that he started was by going to
yeah,
Broadway Dance Centre and just doing lots and lots of classes, and he got, he paid for his classes by cleaning the loos at night. And he wow, and that's how he managed to pay, and then he got a show on Broadway, and you think that's, dream come true, isn't it? And it sounds like that's how
yeah,
you got moving in similar fashion. And the more
yeah.
people I talk
One
to,
show led to another, led to.
it's amazing. I mean, the more people I talk to on the meetup, the more refreshing it is to find that yes, there are people that have gone the route where, okay, I'll go and study and I'll get into a college. But it's lovely to know that if your passion is still there and still driving you, and there are other ways of pursuing a dream, and I think it's exciting.
Yeah.
Right now,
Yeah.
next question. Where are we? Um, who's your favourite musicals artist today and yesterday?
Oh God, I really didn't think about this one. Hadley Frazier.
Fantastic.
Hadley, I want to meet you. We got to work together. What are we going to do together?
There you
I'll play your dad on something. I'm too old to be anything else.
I shall
Um,
introduce you.
Gosh, will you introduce them? Yes, Hadley and Corey. We'll stick with those two. There are just so many. There are so many people that I watch in great awe, and think, how do they do that? And how is it that I'm able to work in the same industry with these people? Honestly, it floors me. Talented the people who are leading the way do this are. So yeah, I'm sorry, that's not a great answer, but
What
I
about
wouldn't
from?
want to single too many people out. And
But what about from the way back when? What about icons from yesteryear who you think are amazing?
hmm, well, um, not just musical theater, but I've said this many times. I learned a lot of what I do from Liza Minnelli. And that's always the most embarrassing thing to say publicly, but it is the absolute truth. You'll never find a more committed actor, singer, dancer. She's just 100% of everything. And what I love about her most is that she's got this thing that is unabashedly, oh my God, you're so lucky. I'm going to sing for you right now. I'm going to dance for you right now. And we're going to have a great time. That sort of energy that just starts you bouncing along. I love it. I love it. And I try to incorporate a little bit of that in what I do.
She's got fizz, hasn't she? Because I saw her at the Palladium years ago, and you feel like she's singing to you. Like you say, you really feel like she's singing to you, and it's so magical because it just feels like it's a personal meet with Liza, and the place, 2,000 people in there, just all thinking the same thing. No, she's singing to me, and she has that
Absolutely.
special gift, doesn't she, to make you feel special.
And it's really important. I think it's really important in what we do that the audience is able to feel that. I did a chat show for many years in the West End, and it was the most common comment that I would get after the show was, I felt like I was sitting in your living room and we were talking and you were sharing stories and your guests were sharing stories. And I think if we can cross over the footlights and we can make you feel like you're a part of our world, then we have a shared experience and it all just elevates from there. I love that. And that's absolutely what I learned watching her.
And of course in Cabaret, she was amazing, wasn't she?
Yeah, I didn't know her back then. But my experience of her was all during the Radio City years. That was when I knew her and learned by watching. Yes, what do you love about Cabaret?
What do I love about Cabaret? The film I found that wasn't half as gritty as the experience you can have of watching Cabaret in the theatre. And I love watching Cabaret in the theatre. I think it just throws your emotions all over the show. But my big memory of watching Cabaret with Liza Minnelli and Joel Grey is just that I just couldn't take my eyes off of her and her eyes and the way that she made Sally Bowles her own. The only thing is with Liza Minnelli being Sally Bowles isn't meant to be able to sing in tune, is she? She's meant to be not much of a singer. And there's Liza Minnelli singing like you wouldn't believe. But Joel Grey, fantastic too. And I've always had a soft spot for Joel Grey. I think he's fantastic too. I mean, but yeah, I can see how she's your icon, your favourite of yesteryear. And I've completely allowed you to get out of your today one. But there we go. But perhaps I can cycle into talking about, maybe I could talk about to you for a second to sort of backstep a bit and say, what was it like when you heard about Jerry Springer the Opera? What was your feeling about the show when you first heard about it? Because it was unusual, wasn't it?
I think the words "absolutely not" were
Really?
the first words to come out of my mouth. Yeah. I remember my agent calling me and saying, "There's this thing. It's about Jerry Springer, and I think you should go for it." And I said, "Absolutely not. I've only been away from the U.S. for a year, and it's one of the things I'm most excited about leaving behind is that sort of reality TV. Little did I know the entire, era that was ahead of us of reality TV. But I said, I want to leave that behind. I hate Jerry Springer. I hate what he stands for. I hate what he does to people in front of an audience. I want nothing to do with it." And he said, "Okay, fair enough. We'll let it go." And then about 2 weeks later, he called me back and he said, "Dave, I've been listening to the talk around town. This is going to be big." He says, "It's going to be big, and they're looking for somebody who does exactly what you do." He said, "Just humor me and learn this sheet music and head in and meet with them." So I went in and I met Richard and the whole team. I met all of them and I sang through the aria, the Satan's Once in Happy Realms. And I remember Richard saying, "I don't suppose you could go down a step, could you?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Another, yeah, another, yeah, another." And he said, "Come on." And so he went down to there and I said, "Yeah, should we sing it there?" So we sang it, and he was sitting at the piano going, "Oh my God, I don't suppose you could go up to," and so he took me in my falsetto up to the really high screamy stuff. And then they all started looking at each other. And we knew, it was like in that moment, we thought, this is going to be great. We should do this together. And off we went. It was exciting.
Very, and of course it was at the National. And the National, when does the National ever do anything bad? I mean, it was just amazing, really exciting.
And what a place to have as my first London theatrical experience. That's the first thing I ever did in London, was to work at the National. It's starting at the top, and the people that we were surrounded with, not only the staff of people that were working with us, but in our dressing rooms, they had that courtyard there. And I used to look out my window and I knew right next to me was Robert Lindsay, and down there was Eileen Atkinson, and over there was Kenneth Branagh. And just above me was Zoe Wanamaker, and next to her was Alec Alex Jennings. It was just phenomenal. I was so excited and had such a great time there.
I suppose you have to say to yourself, no, they're all just normal people. And then the other part of you goes, but they're not.
They're not. They're not.
And then though, in the Heights, you know, could you landed another more fantastic role? It's amazing, isn't it? That just some real standout roles that I just think so exciting.
Yeah, a lot of these things come my way because of something other than the show. And I have to say, with that show, it all came down to Luke Sheppard. I wasn't interested in the show. It wasn't anything that I was desperate to do. And my agent said, Luke wants to know if you'll just meet him for a coffee. And I said, okay. Now we know just meet for a coffee doesn't ever mean just meet for a coffee. But I went down to this other playhouse, and he did indeed get 2 coffees from the bar, and we sat down and we talked about it. And I listened to him talk about what he felt he could bring to the show, what he felt I could bring to the show, what this neighborhood could bring to the show, and how relevant it is to what's going on here right now in London. And I was so blown away by his grasp of the piece and his intelligence about our society today. I remember thinking, and I did think kid, I remember thinking this kid is really stunning, and I don't care what the project is, I want to work with him. And then, you know, as they often do, would you like to sing something? I mean, you don't have to, but do you want to sing through one of the songs? And I said, yeah, let's go sing through one of the songs. So we did, and, you know, the love affair began. And thank goodness, because Luke, again, is the reason that I'm involved with & Juliet. Was not pursuing it, didn't go after it, got a phone call from Luke who said, I have this project that I'm working on. I need somebody to sing the role of the dad. Would you come in and do that for me? And I thought, you know, it's Luke Sheppard. I'm going to say yes, no matter what it is. So I went in, this was in Los Angeles, and sang through the show. And by the end of it, I thought, I want to do this. And here we are 2-3 years later, and one more Olivier up on the shelf, and that's all Luke Sheppard.
I should have got you to line your Oliviers up behind you today.
That's what I needed here.
That's what you should.
Through the daffodils? Come on!
Crying out loud. Now that's what I call decorating the room. But I've also learned something today, a really valuable lesson from talking to you today is there's a lot to be said for playing hard to get, because you said about 2 roles there. I said, no, definitely no, I'm not interested. Okay, I'll just have a coffee, but not it. And look what happens. It's amazing, isn't it? So are you cautious by nature, would you say?
I have 2 sides to me, and they play in opposition to each other. I am cautious about what I commit to, but I spend way too much time saying yes, and which is perhaps why I've ended up cautious on the other side. You know, so I do so many benefit performances and freebies, and friends calling and saying, "Can you record this for me?" And I say, "Yes, of course, because we're friends and I love you." And I spend 90% of my life doing everything for free, making no money and getting nowhere. So there's that side. And then there's the other side, which is, if I'm going to really put myself out there and commit to this, it better be good. And if I have any inkling that somebody's not on their job or this should be better, I back away. Yeah. I'm not going to do it, because I feel like, why invest in something that you know is not great, or you don't have respect for those who are leading the way. That's become a biggie for me. I absolutely have to respect them and be assured of their integrity. I don't want to be involved with anything or anyone that isn't caring about people and taking care of each other. It's just, you know, I'm too old to do anything else at this point.
It's a fine premise, and I suppose your gut feeling and a hunch that you'll have about something and instinct plays a big part, doesn't it, as you go along? Yeah,
it really does. You know, I'm sure I shouldn't be talking about this, but the negotiations for & Juliet, we were at odds because contractually they needed a certain amount of time, they needed to be at a certain they wanted something on this side and I couldn't provide it on that side. I wanted something else, as in the freedom to pursue this, which they could not provide. So we were at a standoff, and it comes down to the humanity of people, I believe. I said, I want to go out for a lunch with Rebecca. Rebecca is our producer. I want to go out for a lunch with her and just talk. And we got together at a table, and I said to her, the only way we're going to come to terms is if we spend some time together and you understand the kind of person I am, and I can find out what kind of person you are. And when we reach a certain level of trust, we'll know it. And then we'll decide what to do. And by the end of that lunch, just talking about love, life, art, how we feel, I knew that I trusted, and she knew that she trusted. And so despite all the things that weren't going to come together, we said, I trust you, I'm going to go with this. And we moved forward. Had we not done that, the contracts would never have met eye to eye, and I wouldn't be in the production. But again, I'm saying it comes down to people, integrity, respect, trust. That's what's most important to me about my work and about life.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I also think it was just really, the last year it's made me realise that you cannot beat meeting up with people in person, for all the on-screen connections that we have had, and thank goodness that we've been able to do it in the last however many months. But I've noticed, even if I meet a friend who I met a friend in the supermarket late on Friday evening, and we couldn't have been happier to see each other in our masks, over our trolleys. It was like we were at a party, and it made me feel so much better just to see him for the first time in months in the flesh rather than over a screen. So I think it's human contact it's been made so obvious in the last months that we've been working on screen, that when you do actually genuinely see someone in the flesh, it makes such a difference, and you can then work on instinct, and it makes you feel better for a start. But it's that working things through, whether it's business relationships or personal relationships, it's seeing people is so important, isn't it?
The human connection and trusting your gut, and it's really important. Oh, right. I miss it. I miss people.
I know. We've got to get out soon. Next question. How are you going to answer this one? You can't sidestep this one. Broadway or West End?
Okay. Ooh, this is so dangerous,
I know.
But then I have to say to myself, what? Am I never going to work again? Touch wood, touch wood, touch wood. I'm going to say that they each have a value.
Hadley, your new friend, I let Hadley have both.
Did you?
Yes, I must confess.
Okay, well, I'll claim both, but I'll tell you why specifically. I think when you look at Broadway, you will never find a better teacher of how to do it bigger, bolder, brighter. It's just the spectacle of Broadway cannot be matched. I don't think anywhere. And so it is great at that. And I owe so much to my years there. As far as learning how to do that, learning how to be at the top of my craft and give everything. I learned that all through them. To the same degree, in the West End, that big, bold, over the top, slug you with a hammer is exactly what you don't want in some productions. And specifically with our production and Juliet, I've said to our producers, you must take the London company over to Broadway if you're going to try to open this on Broadway. There is a finesse and a delicacy and an understanding that only comes with the English mindset. And if you take this to Broadway producers and actors and directors, they're going to be trying to make it bigger and bolder and better. And it's going to lose all of the beauty that comes with what we have. And so I think that's irreplaceable here in the West End. I don't think the Broadway companies would know how to do what we do. We do. Look, I'm clearly a Brit.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
There is most definitely a different flavour to the two places, isn't there? I love them both myself. And both have their magic, don't they?
They really do.
Yeah.
Sorry if I've offended anyone. I always do.
Oh, I don't think you could possibly have. I think it's saying fair enough. It's Broadway and West End and loving, and also you could equally say the same thing about a show, a Broadway show coming over to the West End and saying that likewise we couldn't do it the same way as it was done on Broadway. It would be a different feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It does work both ways. I'm absolutely certain. Now then, you do
Okay.
know we've got to our last question. The last
Yes.
question on the meetup is, if you were to write a book about your life up to now, what would the title be, and what would your favourite chapter be, Mr. Bedella?
This was indeed a hard one, really hard one. I can't imagine uh, how many people struggle with this. The title I came up with is David Bedella, Ignorance is Bliss. And I think I'd say this because my memory of my years in this business and the career, uh, when I look back, I think to myself, how on earth did you have the courage to go for that? Uh, how, as a young person, did you jump on a plane and go to New York and decide you were going to make it, or the city was going to make or break you? It takes tremendous courage to do something like that and to have survived it. And I didn't know any better. I didn't know to be scared. I didn't know about how dangerous and how unlikely success would be. Um, I was ignorant. And all the way back to the beginning, getting out on stage the first time and just saying, I love this, I want to do it. Ignorance is bliss. And then I'm thinking about these latter years, the stuff that I've had to go through with the ending of a long-term relationship. I was in a marriage for 20 years that came to a halt about 8 years ago. The losing of my parents, the separation from my family, being over here in London. These things have taught me sobering life lessons.
Yeah.
And so while I appreciate life in a much more profound way than I ever did before, I sometimes look back and think, gosh, it was nice when I didn't know all this. Life was easier when I didn't know what I know. It's richer today. I'm not saying that I prefer the other. My life is certainly richer today. And I have a greater understanding of people and of what I'm willing to accept and not accept. Those things are irreplaceable, and I wouldn't go backwards. I just remember it all being a little bit easier.
I think my mum always says it's as well we don't know what's ahead of us. Although we're always, looking ahead to the future, it's just as well we don't really know what's ahead because we just need to deal with now, really, and deal with that as
Yeah.
best we can. What would your favourite chapter be of this book, beautifully titled book?
My favorite chapter would be the current chapter, which is 2021. What did I write down? 2021, the year of knowing. I used to love this phrase. My friend Mike Eldred in Nashville, Tennessee, he used to talk about the turning 33. He was looking forward to turning 33 because that was the year of knowing. That was the year that Jesus was crucified, and his family used to say that's the year of knowing. And that's the year that you're meant as a man to know who you are and what you're doing and have your career and your life is in order. For me, this year has been the year of knowing. 2021 has been the crystallization for me of who I am, of what's important to me, of who I am in life, here publicly, in theater, in politics, in relationship. It's just all sort of crystallized. And I think that's probably happened for a lot of people through this lockdown and through this pandemic, is you take a serious and sobering look about what your life is about and
Yeah.
what's important. And I feel like that's all come together this year. And I find that I'm happy. I'm happy with who I am. Um, some things are hard. Some things are hard realities to face, but they're me, and I take responsibility for them. So yeah, that's where I am.
What an amazing chapter, and what a lovely point in your life to have come to as well. And it's at the moment in your life where everything kind of stopped almost, isn't it?
It is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mind you, seeing everything that you've done in the last year, you could hardly say that you'd stopped. Because I look at the things that you've been doing, you think, he's so busy. But what no, super chapter, and I love the title of the book, most definitely. Yes, you get ticks for that. Wonderful. David, thank
Oh,
you so
thank you.
much for
Thank you. Thank
meeting
you.
up with me today on the meetup. It's been fantastic to talk to you.
Lesley, you are lovely. I thank you for asking me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's an absolute honour. I've wanted, as you know, I've been pestering you for ages, wanting to catch up with you and talk to you. And I've been so excited that we finally got to meet up today. And thank you so much. But next time I'm going to make sure you've got all your Olivier Awards behind you, lined up.
Okay.
But
Okay, will do.
thank you so much for joining us on the Just Talking Musicals meetup. David Bedella. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Just talking musicals, musicals with you.